You can't be fishing here. It is strictly prohibited. I'm calling the association. This is ridiculous. Look at this mess. You can't be fishing here. Look at the signs. It's strictly forbidden.
Ma'am, I am just fishing on the edge of the lake. I didn't mean to cause any trouble.
I'm calling the sheriff right now.
It was supposed to be another peaceful morning on the lake. I came out early, cast my line, and expected nothing more than a few quiet hours of fishing. Then my line tightened, and a few minutes later, I pulled up a beautiful bass. I smiled because the fish was exactly the kind of catch I had been hoping for. Karen pulled out her phone and made a call. She told the wildlife officers that an illegal fisherman was refusing to leave her lake. A few minutes later, a wildlife enforcement SUV pulled up. Karen looked satisfied, convinced the officers had arrived to arrest me. The officer walked over and asked me for my fishing license. I handed it to him without hesitation and waited for him to check the details. He looked at my license, then looked at my fishing gear. His expression changed from routine curiosity to genuine interest. The officer suddenly asked me where I had learned to fish on this lake. I gave him a simple answer, and his reaction surprised everyone. The officer recognized my name from a local conservation project. Instead of reaching for handcuffs, he smiled and extended his hand. Then he shook my hand and thanked me for supporting the lake's conservation efforts. Karen's confident expression disappeared almost instantly. Karen insisted that the officer arrest me for ignoring HOA rules. But the officer calmly explained that HOA rules do not replace state fishing regulations. He showed her the actual state regulations governing the lake. My license was valid. The season was open, and my catch was within the legal limit. Karen tried to argue that the HOA had its own authority over the water. The officer politely corrected her again. Then Karen made one more mistake. She claimed the HOA owned the shoreline, so I asked the officer if he wanted to see my property records. The deed showed that I owned a portion of the shoreline and had long-standing access rights. Karen had apparently never bothered to check the records. By now, several neighbors had gathered nearby. They could see that the story Karen had told the officers was not matching reality. The officer explained that fishing enforcement belonged to the state, not the HOA. He also made it clear that there was no reason to arrest me. The officer even checked my catch to make sure everything was legal. It passed the inspection without a problem. The officer told me everything checked out. My license was valid, the fish was legal, and I had done nothing wrong. Karen still wasn't ready to give up. She insisted that the HOA could punish me even if the state couldn't. The officer explained that any HOA dispute was a civil matter, not a wildlife crime. Karen finally realized her call had accomplished nothing. I told Karen I had no problem following reasonable community rules. But I also told her that state law and property rights could not simply be ignored. One of the neighbors finally spoke up. He said he'd seen people fishing from that area legally for years. The confrontation that Karen expected never happened. Instead, the entire mood around the dock became surprisingly calm. Before leaving, the officer shook my hand again. He told me he appreciated people who respected both the law and the lake. The wildlife officers headed back toward the road. Karen watched them leave, knowing they had not supported the story she told them. Once everyone left, I sat back down and cast my line again. The lake was quiet, and that's exactly how I wanted it. Karen finally walked away without another word, and I never saw her call the wildlife officers on me again. That day reminded me of something simple. Confidence means knowing your rights, not bullying others. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from.